Just for fun, how many of these can you do? All day long.
Oh, he's gotten better at these.
Come on, keep going.
2.
Stop one. Look. See how he's pulled Also guys, one last thing before we get started and I introduce you to this handsome bastard, just want to let you know that the update to my program, the Skinny Fat Solution, is now live. This is the whole reason why I made this program in the first place, and that's why it's actually a lot more suited and sort of targeted towards beginners, those kind of in their first 1 to 2 years of training. You guys are going to see why my transformation, it took pretty much twice as long as it realistically should have, because to put it lightly, I didn't know what the f I was doing. If you are in your first 1 or 2 years of lifting, you need this program to make sure that you don't do the same mistakes that I did. That you take full advantage of your newbie gains, the period in your life when you can make the most and fastest gains you will ever make, and that way you don't waste your time going in circles making suboptimal gains for months or even years at a time, which is unfortunately exactly what I did. So this is me at age 14, back when I thought this shit on my head looked good. Legit, I have like cringed looking back at this because it looks like 3 squirrels died mid-orgy on top of my head and I just kept it there. I was pretty much like somewhat of a skinny-ish guy. One thing which I think is a big benefit is I never was anywhere near fat. I think that's obviously to a certain extent due to my genetics, but I'll be honest, other big factor, probably the biggest factor, was my upbringing. My parents always pushed me into sports. First I would do like soccer, I would do track at school, I'd play basketball with my friends. I was always, you know, off my ass doing something. So I'm Russian, and Russian culture is very physically oriented. I mean, just there's like jokes and memes about this stuff, about like, you have to be this big Russian man, all we do is eat borscht and work out and like crush capitalism. And as funny as that is, to a certain extent, it is kind of true. I remember like I would enter into high school being already able to do like 6 or 8 bodyweight pull-ups, whereas a lot of guys my age who barely hit puberty, they were fat, they couldn't even do 1. My parents were the kind of people where if you'd ask them for a snack, they'd be like, what do you mean? We have plenty of snacks. We have green apple, red apple, orange, banana, look at this. And me obviously being a kid, I'm just like, what the fuck? I want some good shit. So either way, getting back on track, I was 135 pounds, 5'11", around 15% body fat, I'm just estimating here. This, if you plug it in to an FFMI calculator, gives me a score of 16, which is not a lot. The average male is around 18, so me being 16 means I haven't even gone on the scale yet. You don't even look like the average typical dad bod. There's not much muscle mass here. But actually, there was one time when I kind of felt like a little bit of a big man. My friend at the time, and his dad had like this really crappy weight set. And this is probably a bad idea because we were like 13, 14 and stupid. we decided to test our 1 rep maxes on the bench press. I got up to 105 pounds. Not bad. 100 pounds plus first time. Again, if you have a standard basic background just with physical sports, that already is going to make you significantly ahead of the curve than all the fat people or the people who've never worked out or done anything athletic to begin with, because when they enter the gym, they'll be lucky if they could bench press the bar or do 10 push-ups. This is me about 1 year into officially working out. For like the first year, I was a curl and bench bro. All I cared about, and the majority of what I did, was bench press and bicep curls. You know how like people joke every day is arm day? No, that was literally my life for the first year. I didn't touch a single exercise for anything south of my chest up until I was like later into high school. At this time, I got up to a 155 pound bench press, which is actually, you know, starting to get a little bit less embarrassing. I am now benching more than my body weight, which is kind of a big deal. And I was around 145 pounds body weight, 15 still percent-ish body fat, giving me an FFMI of 17.2, a noticeable improvement than before, but let's be honest, I'm still not even at the point of being an average guy because, again, me being in high school, being a bit more of an ectomorph, I'm still a skinny kid. I'm just a skinny kid who happens to do a lot of bench press. Now here is where things start to go off the rails a little bit. I see so many transformations now. You know, these kids who are in high school and they are jacked. All of these, like, you know, these like kind of like Lex Littles, you know, like these David Lades, these Dylan McKennas. And I think a big reason behind that is because of YouTube, is because of social media, is because access to fitness knowledge is so much easier now in terms of programs and videos and all this shit. Fast forward back to me at age 18, this is the exact opposite. This is where I kind of mentioned earlier in the video how like I could have made so much more progress so much faster, but I didn't. I put on not even 10 pounds after grade 9 all the way to grade 12. At the time, I spent a lot of time doing track. I remember like I had some cool accomplishments, like I was able to run the 400 meters in under a minute. I was able to do the 5K in under 22 minutes, which is a pretty decent 4:30 per kilometer pace, which I can't even do now. I didn't really train my back effectively. I didn't do anything for my lower body. My structure was shit. I was just go in the gym and just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And also my nutrition was non-existent. My grade 12 teacher was into CrossFit. He would teach us how to do it. We would follow along, and that was my fitness and bodybuilding at the time. How many times could I upright row this empty bar? We even had like this kind of after school kind of club where we'd get together and we'd work out. So at this time, if I remember correctly, I got up to about a plate and a half, a 185 pound bench press, which again is not bad. I'm benching more than my body weight, but considering I barely put on 30 pounds on my bench press in, 3 years of high school? Yeah, you can see that although it was working, it wasn't working that well, and it certainly was not working that fast. Around this time, I was like 158-ish pounds. That number is ingrained in my head because I really wanted to break 160, and I just couldn't. This came out to around 18.2 on the FFMI scale. Congratulations, 18-year-old Igor, you are finally an average guy. I started to slowly figure things out, and this actually right here was my grade 12 graduation pick. They literally let me bring a dumbbell up from the high school gym and hold it for my pick. Did result in a pretty decent pump. You got that bicep vein going on. Not bad. Again, 4 years of curling and bench press. It didn't do nothing, but it didn't exactly do enough, to say the least. It's funny, they ask you this question, yo, bro, how long you been lifting? What's your experience? Well, that's kind of the wrong question. The proper question is, how long have you been lifting properly? Because at this time, I have been lifting for around 4-ish years, but lifting properly is probably less than 1. Finally, at 19, I found something which changed my entire life, and that is I watched Pumping Iron for the first time. I don't want to be just the guy who works out for fun. Up until now, I did track, I did CrossFit. I want to become a bodybuilder. I need to train like a bodybuilder. I need to eat like a bodybuilder. I discovered bodybuilding.com. I entered college, and that was a huge difference because now instead of being in some small little suburban high school, I'm in this big university with 30, 40,000 people. I saw guys do such crazy shit in the gym. I'll never forget, there was this one son of a bitch. This guy was probably like 24, 25, 230, would go in the gym and deadlift 7 fucking plates. At the time, I'm like, oh, I want to be just like you. And then little did I know that the guy was juiced to the gills. But at the time, I didn't know that. I said, I want to be like you. I want to be like Arnold. And that was my motivation to start learning about this stuff. That is when I kind of first started discovering YouTube fitness, Matt Ogus, Christian Guzman, more scientific sources like Eric Helms. I got up to finally, for the first time in my life, a 2 plate, 1 rep max on the bench, 225 pounds, which I think is around 100 kilos. I finally started working on my legs slowly. At this time, I had a 185 pound squat, and I got my body weight up to 170 pounds. I would say like 17-ish% body fat, bringing me up to an FFMI of 19. I am finally above the average man. And it only took me 5 years. 20 years old. This is pretty much the continuation of me just really, really taking this seriously. At this time, the biggest change for me was my nutrition. I started eating like it was my fucking job. Literally at my life, it was goal 1, eat lots of food, protein, carbs, everything. Goal 2 was getting a decent GPA in school. That's how crazy this shit was. I would bus around town searching for deals on chicken breast in order to make sure that I had enough food for protein. I would go to all the different grocery stores within like a 20-mile radius of where I live, and I would see who's gonna have the best sale on chicken breast. I would get like 2 grocery bags in a backpack. I'd literally buy like 20, 25, 30 pounds of chicken breast, and then we'd stick it in this big freezer me and my roommates had in our basement. That's pretty much how I lived. And this is kind of what I mentioned earlier, how I did make good gains, it just took way longer than it should have. I got up to 185 pounds body weight, not fat, not lean, a normal guy, 16-inch arms, and this came out to an FFMI of 20.7. Finally, I have broken into not just better than the average man, but actually looking like, hey, you know that question like, bro, do you even lift? Yes, I do. Fast forward a little bit, this was age 22, my final year of university, and I really just kept going with the food. You guys know that scene from Goodfellas?
Now the guy's gotta come up with Paulie's money every week, no matter what. Business bad? Fuck you, pay me. Oh, you had a fire? Fuck you, pay me. Place got hit by lightning, huh? Fuck you, pay me.
I was like that, except with eating. I'm stuck in class? Fuck you, eat food. Oh, you're not that hungry? Fuck you, eat food. You and your college girlfriend are literally in the middle of a big fight and she's standing there with tears and you're crying. It's like, oh, okay, fuck you, eat food. I don't care if it's 1 in the morning. You are gonna cook yourself the chicken, the pasta, the this, the that, and you are gonna get that food in. I got up in my final year of college to 200 pounds, a little bit heavier. I was probably like 20-ish% body fat, giving me an FFMI of 21.5, which is pretty good actually. My bench press was up to 315 pounds, the first time that I ever hit 3 plates on the bench press. My squat was no longer embarrassingly low and below my bench. I actually remember hitting 365 pounds on the squat my final year of university, and I even started deadlifting, quickly working my way up to a 4-plate deadlift. Finally, I felt like I'm a big guy. Not the biggest guy, but a big guy in general. If I walk into the gym, I'm comfortable that I'm going to be in the top 10, 20%. My arms just were about 16.5 inches, which is actually more or less where they are right now. So this is pretty much when I achieved my maximum from an arm circumference standpoint. At around 24 years old, 23, 24, I reached my, give or take, genetic maximum, my genetic potential with regards to muscle mass. And this is when the fun really begins. I remember in 2014, that was the first time I ever did anything competition-wise. I decided to jump into a local Toronto powerlifting competition. It was a raw powerlifting competition in which I hit a 275-pound paused bench press, which is a bit harder than the touch and go, so give me a little bit of credit, a 365-pound squat, and a 507-pound deadlift. Immediately, I jumped into a cut with a goal of doing my first ever bodybuilding show. This is the first time in my life when I was blown away by how I looked. I remember this, I was around 185 pounds, 12% body fat, and if you plug that in, that comes out to an FFMI of 22, which was the biggest I have ever been at this time. That combination of size, the deltoids, the chest, the back, which is looking like three-dimensional, looks like a topographic map with all these like bumps, and you can see like the lats and the rear deltoids, the traps. I never had issues with body dysmorphia or all that crap. I knew I had a good body, and I knew I liked the way I looked. But until I saw this in the mirror, that was the first time that I truly impressed myself. I looked at this and thought, holy shit, I've achieved the physique, which up until now I kind of thought was not even possible naturally. At least with my decent, not amazing, but not bad, but decent genetics. And I competed for the first time at 178 pounds body weight, give or take 10% body fat. Not fat by any means, but nowhere near the level of leanness I should have had for my competition. This kind of led to the next few years. It kind of like, you guys know the story, because this is when I joined YouTube in 2015, and I showed you guys my bulking years, my cutting years, all these different achievements that I did. 2015, competing for the second time, getting way leaner, down to 170 pounds, probably 8% body fat, give or take, placing third and first in both shows that I did. 2016, I competed in powerlifting again, hitting all-time records for me. 17-inch arms, a lot of it was body fat, I will admit. Since then, to be honest, I've kind of stayed around the same. I've done other things with my physique. I've gotten into sprint training, I've gotten into running again, I've gotten into rock climbing over the last 2 years. I've competed again in 2017, placing top 3, 2019, not placing top 3.
And guys, to summarize, before I ramble on for another 20 minutes, there are 3 things I want you to take away from this video. Number 1, this takes time. Yes, I keep mentioning in this video how I could have done all of this so much faster, but by that I mean instead of me taking almost a decade, I could have achieved this muscle mass in about 4 or 5 years. But guess what? 4 or 5 years is still a shitload of time. Number 2, while you guys may never look like The Rock or Chris Bumstead, you can still build a pretty damn impressive physique 100% naturally. You do not have to be shredded and 200 pounds to look big. And number 3, for God's sakes, if you want to take this even remotely seriously, go in with a decent strategy, a decent plan. Figure out how to build a proper training program, learn how to use nutrition effectively for both muscle gain and fat loss, or better yet, get yourself a program which takes the guesswork out of the equation. Perhaps a program that has recently had a massive update, is 100% backed by evidence-based science, and is on sale right now at 20% off through the link in the description box below. Yeah, that feels like a good option. Either way, guys, I hope you found this video helpful. I hope it motivated you, but most importantly, I hope it gave you a good example, a good reference point for what a normal and natural transformation really looks like. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.